Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we speak with ASX companies and we get the guys who manage the projects to come and have a chat. We've got Matador Mining here today, and we've got a bit of a technical discussion. Matador's been on Coffee with Samso for a fair bit. I've got Warren Potma here, who is the Chief Geologist, and Crispin Pike, who is the Exploration Manager, who is actually in Port au Basque in Newfoundland, Canada. Got that right. Matador ASX code is MZZ. Market cap is 28.22 million. Gold story in Canada, Newfoundland, and it has a resource of about 800,000 ounces. Projects wise, there's the Cape Ray project in Newfoundland and the Hermitage Project. Associated projects around, you got Big Rich, which is 900,000 ounces, Maritime Gold, and Maritime Resources. So, Warren, you've been with us. The last time we spoke was in December 2020. Been a while. Look, Warren, maybe give yourself an introduction and maybe give us a quick one about Crispin, and we'll head off and have a chat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Noel. So, as you know, I've been with the company for a little over 2 years now. It's been an interesting ride, a fantastic project. You saw how excited I was when I spoke with you back in December 2020 about the opportunity and the prospectivity of the ground, and that's really only grown with the work that we've been doing since. I reached out and brought Crispin into the company originally as principal geologist, and he's now taken on the role in country of driving the exploration as VP Discovery for Matador. He's been with us for nearly a year and a half now, I think. And he's helped to build a team on the ground that enabled us to deliver an amazing amount of work last year, and we're continuing on with a great amount of work this year. I guess the story for me has been the first 6 to 12 months, really come to grips with the project, understand what are the controls on gold mineralisation, where's the known gold mineralisation, and where do we not know what we don't know. And it's 120 kilometres of strike length. This area is vastly underexplored. So 15 kilometres of that has seen all of the drilling except 20 holes when I first joined the project. Since then, we've expanded our greenfields exploration mostly towards the northeast, but we've done a lot of work around trying to expand the mineralisation around the known parts of the system, particularly Window Glass Hill, where we made 2 new discoveries undercover within the granite away from the known mineralisation last year and the year before. And that was really off the back of taking the technologies that we brought to Matador that weren't being used in Canada and certainly hadn't been used on the project before, to help us be able to detect the mineralisation undercover or through this shallow till cover that we get across most of the project. It's sort of 0.5 metre to maybe 10 metres max thickness, on average 2 to 3 metres thick. And so working on the techniques and the methodologies for seeing through cover has, in conjunction with aeromagnetics and really good old-fashioned prospecting and mapping, has led us to the point now where we're really confident to step out and do this true greenfields exploration to make that next million-ounce discovery.
Okay. I mean, it is a big project. As when we first talked about this way back then, I guess we always said it's a matter of time rather than if, I guess, where you guys make that step up, I guess. Look, Crispin, I'll direct this question towards yourself. How do you see the progress of exploration activities? Look, in terms of logistics, the actual drilling and sample collection, and the plan going forward, and maybe just give us a quick intro about yourself, so the guys get to know yourself.
Excellent, thanks. So I'm from Newfoundland, born and raised, and I did my undergraduate studies here. My first job was actually in gold exploration with a junior company here on the island. After that, I went to the rest of the Americas and worked with majors, only to come back to Newfoundland. I spent some time with the Geological Survey here, really working on the gold story of Newfoundland prior to this explosion of exploration that's gone on in the last 5 years. Matador reached out to me, and I was really impressed with Matador's ground holdings, but also their technical approach for exploration and discovery. So I joined the team, and since then I've been learning a lot, but also working really hard to build a team and make the next big discovery here in Newfoundland. Just the first part of your question regarding progress. So when I started, we were just in the process of flying the high resolution airborne geophysics. As Warren pointed out, it's the highest resolution airborne magnetic survey flown on the island. And what that allows us to do is detect the subtle structures that control the mineralization. From there, then we've launched extensive regional geochemistry surveys. And this allows us, so first we detect the structures using the geophysics, and then we do the geochemistry to see if, these structures are holding the gold. So from a greenfields perspective, I've seen a lot of progress, basically from a belt that was wide open and underexplored to a belt where we have better understanding now. So with the geophysics, the geochemistry, but also with the geological mapping. It was the largest geological mapping campaign in decades that was launched here on the island, where we had geologists living out in the wilderness all summer, mapping the rocks and get a better understanding on the geology. And of course, the prospecting with, hiring local Newfoundland prospectors who are very well respected nationally here in Canada to go out and sniff out some of that gold that does outcrop. So we have really a hybridized approach. The Australian systematic approach of testing the whole ground through gridded geochemical surveys, as well as, the boots and hammer style prospecting here that the Newfoundlanders are famous for. So the progress is really built in that manner. And moving forward, we're really at the phase now where we've done the groundwork, the regional work, and we have identified a large number of targets. This was from historic data compilation and all the methodologies that I just discussed. We've compiled a large number of targets, and now it's to go in and test them. So we're at that phase now where we go in with the drill bit and test these excellent targets on this world-class structure.
Crispin, just a question on what you talked about in terms of the geophysics, right? In most of the discussion I've had here, geophysics has been a more of a dominant tool used by exploration. Is that common thing in your part of the world? Obviously, the rocks are different, the cover's different.
Yeah, so magnetics is a foundational tool that we use here in Canada and all over the world to help us with the geometry and the structure of the rocks. This belt was flown in 2000 at 200-meter line spacing. When we went in there, it just wasn't at the resolution that we needed to identify these structures that are controlling the mineralization. So we did a lot of work to figure out what we needed to do, and ultimately we decided on 30 meters. So we had 200-meter resolution data, and we brought that down to 30, and it was basically like putting glasses on. Everything came into focus, and all these structures that we see in our belt of rocks that potentially could host mineralization were apparent.
Okay. Stepping back, CapRay is a big project, and sometimes these kind of big projects, it's fantastic, it's great, but it gives you a headache for the guys who actually have to go and do the work. Like in terms, like where to go, what to do next. Can you give us your thoughts, how different that is compared to your previous work, or what are the challenges that you may see or advantages?
Well, it is a big tenement package at 120 kilometers in strike length. It is a large structure, and further along this structure, of course, it is a proven multi-million ounce structure with our 840,000 ounces that we have in resource. And then to the northeast, we have Marathon Gold, who have over 5 million ounces in resource, and they're currently breaking ground to develop the first multi-million ounce mine in Newfoundland, which is on the same structural trend that we're on. So it is a very large structure. How we really dive in deep and figure out where to explore next, it's based off of a lot of things. The historic work review, there was good work done in the 70s and 80s, but never really had the capital or the focus to really dive in there and make the next big discovery on the structure. Also, as Warren has pointed out, this combination of geophysics and geochemistry from a regional perspective. So, we find these second and third order structures coming off the main Cape Ray shear zone that potentially could host the mineralization. And then we followed them up with more targeted approach. So we start with broad spaced regional data over the entire package. And then when we see indications of mineralization, we target in, and that's how we generate our detailed work, which will ultimately generate diamond drill targets and drive discovery.
I think if I may just add there, Noel, that's a really good point that Crispin just made, and it's exactly the approach we've used at Malachite. Right? So Malachite is an area, it's 15 kilometres of strike length, it's about 4 kilometres wide, it's on a major regional bend. We picked up the ground off the main Cape Ray shear that we didn't already hold, with all of these splays coming off the major bend in the Cape Ray shear. We picked that up off the back of doing the detailed magnetics. With that structural map that we built from the magnetics, we then went in and did broad coverage, 400 by 100 metre spaced surface sampling, tills, some bottom of holes, some rock chips and that sort of thing, and we defined a multitude of targets. So we had sort of circa 14, 17 different targets off the back of that, including the gold grain samples that we've reported over the last year or so. Some cracking gold grains, more than 1,000 grains of gold in a 12 kilo sample of till, which is huge, right? So it's the equivalent of like a 1 to 2 gram soil anomaly, right? Phenomenal results. What we've done this year is pick the best 3 of those, or at least the 3 targets that were the best defined from that work, followed up with some infill geochemistry, and now the rigs are turning there, right? So that's the first 3 of potentially 10, 12, 14 targets, and that's just in malachite. Malachite's, like I said, it's just 15 kilometres of that 105 kilometres that's completely unexplored. So it's a huge amount of opportunity that we still haven't touched, but the key to it is find what you think your best target area is, like malachite, 15 kilometres, get in there, detect the best drilling targets within there, get in and test them quickly. If you come up with something great, you're onto it, and if not, get on to looking at the multitude of other targets that we've got.
So when we look at what you guys are working on, we're not talking about very deep kind of drilling, are we? Because pretty shallow stuff there, right?
Yeah, there's definitely opportunity at depth. I mean, we know from Central Zone we've got plunging shoots of mineralisation that are just not tested, much below 200 metres below surface. But there's so much gold within that top 150 metres, and there's so much value in that gold in the top 150 metres. Why would you go chasing the deep stuff now? Right? The aim is to get on to 1 million plus ounces that's potentially open pittable near surface, sitting under a very thin veneer of cover, so no one's ever found it before. Get onto that, and then as the field matures, you can start thinking about the deeper stuff.
Does that mean that, I pose this question to both of you, like, is it geologically unique, like Cape Ray, malachite, or is it run of the mill, you just got to do the dotting the I's and crossing the T's?
Look, I think it's unique in one sense. It sits on a proven multi-million ounce structure. Right? It's the only proven multi-million ounce structure on the island. It's not to say that there aren't others, but it's a major structural corridor, and we know there's gold on it. So from that perspective, it's unique. From the perspective of the processes of mineralisation and the localisation of mineralisation on structures, it's structurally controlled. In terms of the geochemical signatures, not that unique. It's stuff we're used to exploring this way all around the world. We look at this, the only difference between Cape Ray Project and the Yilgarn is that Cape Ray is scoured fresh rock with a bit of till on top. There's no deep weathering profile. So your approach to exploration is slightly different, but the mineral systems are similar. Right? So we know the geometry of we know the sorts of geometries we're looking for, we know the sorts of geochemical signatures we're looking for. It's just the approach to testing them. So here, we've developed, I spoke to you about this last time we spoke, about these power auger rigs, right? The backpack rigs and so forth. We've developed really lightweight, man-portable or person-portable methods for drilling through the till and getting a sample at the base of till and at basement, which is fantastic for the geochemistry. It's cheap. It's kind of like using a RAB rig in the Yilgarn, but we haven't got clay. So it's just a matter of adapting your exploration methods, but the mineral systems are similar.
Apart from market sentiment with anything outside of lithium space, when an investor looks at you guys, what are they seeing that you think that will make them think, no, this is going to be takes a long time? or that you need to say, look, that's not true? I mean, there's a lot of market sentiments, and people always think of one thing or another, right? What's the stuff that you guys are hearing from talking to people?
Look, I mean, there was certainly, the market was underwhelmed by our extensional drilling that we did last year. We got good results reported into the market, but it was incremental gains on potential gains on resources. And the market was like, well, really that wasn't moving the dial for us. And, we realised that. We got that feedback from the market. And so really, since Sam Pazuki, our new CEO, has come on board, he has really championed our desire to go and do the greenfields exploration to make the newly announced discovery. The thing that blows me away is, our market cap sort of hovering between $30 and $40 million. We've got 832,000 ounces in resources at an average grade of 2 grams, most of it open pittable, right? On a multi-million ounce structure with 120 kilometres of strike length unexplored, with fantastic gold grain and rock chip anomalies all along it, and they've never been drilled. And you look at some of our peers even in Australia, there's nobody with a market cap like that that has this sort of exploration upside underpinned by an open pittable resource at 2 grams. It's incredible, right? So I think the downside is probably pegged by our resources, or underpinned by our resources, and the upside is phenomenal with the exploration.
Crispin, not to leave you out of the conversation, right? I mean, you've heard the issues and all this thing from an exploration manager point of view. How do you capture that and say, look, we need to maybe be a bit more innovative in how we think and move, or maybe we shouldn't be doing this, we should do that? Because you're the guy on the ground, right? So it's easy for guys outside to say, oh, let's do this. But are those kind of thoughts sort of playing in your mind?
Yeah, and in the first part of the question, you kind of mentioned the timing and how long these things take. And that really comes back to, what our exploration strategy is and what kind of hurdles we have to meet along the way. And, over the last 18 months since I've been here, and really, Warren started at a similar time, you have to build your exploration methodology, you have to build your team, collect that foundational data. And then, that's what all of your exploration work is based upon. So I think, while we were doing the resource drilling proximal to the known resources, we were building this foundation for the greenfields exploration. And then the timing, with the markets, as well as the incoming CEO, the pivot to greenfields exploration, we're really well positioned to make this pivot. So, the 840,000 ounces in resource is a proof of concept that, hey, look, central zone is over 1 kilometer in strike length. You can get significant gold mineralization in this system. You compound that with, Marathon success to the northeast of us, plus this foundation that we've built in our foundational data sets with geochemistry and geophysics. Add in, the more hybridized methodologies of mixing Canadian and Australian methodologies, the geological mapping and prospecting that we did this summer. Just as an aside, in one of our press releases there, we had some pictures of some quartz veins with, substantial sulfides in it that look very similar to the mineralization that we see in our deposits. This is right on surface. Some of this ground, let alone it hasn't been drilled, it hasn't even been walked over. We're finding quartz veins on surface that have never been hammered on before. It's unbelievable the potential that's out there. But just to get back to the timing of this, we're set up now to go in and do that detailed work and test these targets and make these discoveries that are going to turn the dial for our shareholders and add value for our shareholders, which is, a major discovery in the greenfield space to blow open this whole belt that we have.
Playing devil's advocate, and I've always said that I'm a big fan of your projects. It's all a case of how much money you have and how many holes you drill. I think that's if you really look at it in general, I think that's pretty much a matter of when and not if. But let me play the devil's advocate in this point here. Like, what are the challenges? What's the problem? Because every project has one, right? So from the technical side of things, is it logistic? Is it, obviously we're going into winter. And that means delay, and market doesn't like delays. What are the challenges that you foresee? Because you need to plan your exploration.
There is problems on the project. You mentioned logistics. it's not so much problems as it is challenges. And being an ASX listed company, and having the Australian approach to exploration, and then us being here on the ground and being from local sources and locally trained geos, we can look at these challenges from different directions. Like, for instance, you'd mentioned winter logistics for winter drilling. Last year, Matador had its inaugural winter drill program, and it was the first winter drilling on this belt for a long time, and it was very successful. But we had to stop and plan it from a health and safety perspective, from a logistical perspective, and it's a hurdle that we overcame. So I think the logistics, it is a remote area, but we do have some infrastructure as well. So from a logistics perspective, we just kind of need to balance the planning and the health and safety. Really are the main hurdles to get through on the logistics side. But we're doing that very well, and we're putting a lot of time and effort into solving those logistical challenges.
I think, Noel, maybe one other thing from that perspective is, in the current market, as you say, lithium's the darling. Raising capital in a gold space is not as easy as it is raising in a lithium space. I know our shareholders want to make sure that we're spending the money wisely, right? So part of the challenge is exactly where do you want to get or want to go to get the best bang for buck? It's not as though we're in a raging bull market where you just go out and, a lot of companies will just go out and drill as many holes as they can and hope the shotgun effect is going to work. You've got to be really surgical about where you spend your money, particularly on diamond drilling, because it's not cheap. So the challenge for the team and for us is, where is the best place to spend our limited funds to get the best results as soon as possible in terms of discovery for our shareholders?
Yeah, I mean, look, my view is that the thematics long term is positive for gold, because as we know, plus all the other metals, lithium as one of them. But look, I guess it's a case of just be wise, like in any case, right? And the other thing, I guess, a lot of people talk about when we talk, whether we're in Australia or mainly, I suppose, the questions I get when we talk US and Canadian projects is the jurisdiction in terms of First Nation and the environmental concepts. Can you share what you have to do or what you are doing in terms of that sector?
Yeah, so I worked with the provincial government in Newfoundland and Labrador with the Geological Survey, and I'm very familiar with the jurisdiction, and I actually worked in the promotion side for mining and mineral exploration. And we've done the benchmark, and if you look at the Fraser Institute studies on the most favorable jurisdictions for mining and mineral exploration, Newfoundland always ranks in the top 10, and in the last decade we've been up as high as the third best jurisdiction to explore in and mine in globally. So we do rank really high as a jurisdiction. That's just one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is here on the ground. The permitting process for the Marathon Gold is completed at a provincial and federal level, and that happened fairly quickly. To go from the discovery and the growing of the resource there, and they're currently breaking ground. I was just speaking with one of our contractors who was on Marathon's project today, breaking ground there. So it is proof that you can take a discovery and permit it and build it here in Newfoundland. So we also have a long history of mining. We have majors here mining iron ore and nickel and gold, which is very similar to Australia. So that's one of the big synergies and understanding that we have being an ASX listed company here is, we produce similar commodities. Newfoundland produced over $4 billion in mineral shipments last year, and it's a great jurisdiction to work in. From an Indigenous perspective, we do have Indigenous groups in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Specifically in Labrador, there is the Innu and the Inuit peoples who work with the mining companies. Here in Newfoundland and close to our project, there is groups, and we work very closely with them. We have a good rapport with them, and they're open for business. They're pro-development. Indigenous groups here in Newfoundland are definitely pro-development, so it's not a hurdle at all. It's actually an advantage. We can take advantage of skilled labor and the sorts. So it's a great jurisdiction. Newfoundlanders in general, it's a resource-based economy for hundreds of years. The fisheries, forestry, mining, it's part of our people, and people are very they want the big projects to be here on the island for employment. It's great support, and the government is very supportive as well.
Hermitage Project, Warren. I hear antimony means higher grade, but tell us about it.
Look, I mean, the Hermitage Project, to be fair, is Crispin's baby. So
Okay.
soon after Crispin joined, I introduced him to the Cape Ray project, and I said, now, if there was anywhere else on the island that you would want to go and pick up ground, where would you go? And he didn't hesitate. I barely got the sentence finished, and he said, this is the ground that we want. So we literally jumped online. I think probably within a couple of days of having that conversation, we were online and pegging the ground. It was open ground. I'll let Crispin tell you why we like it, but certainly what caught my eye was this is a major structure, not unlike the Cape Ray Shear. It swings down and around the island. It bounds two completely different separate sets of rocks. It's an anomaly at the scale of the island because it's the only structure that cuts northwest across the island. Everything else trends northeast. And this is a major structure that bends around, and we really like structures that are anomalous in terms of their orientation. It's also anomalous in terms of it's got one of the largest arsenic and antimony anomalies, both in terms of size and in terms of tenor of arsenic and antimony anywhere on the island. And that structure, the Hermitage structure as it bends around, runs north through Newfound Gold's and Lab Gold's ground as well, where we're hearing all these fantastic stories of super high grade, broad intersections, also associated with similar pathfinder elements, the arsenic and antimony. So I'll let Crispin just talk a little bit more about the Hermitage project as a whole.
Yes, and Warren, covered off on the main aspects of this target. As he mentioned, it's an anomalous orientation. It's the largest antimony anomaly from a regional perspective on the island. There is a producing antimony mine very close to a lot of the big gold showings in the eastern portion of the province. And this anomaly is substantially larger than right next to the antimony mine that's in production. It's a monster of a geochem anomaly, and it's coincident with this anomalous strike. What's interesting is that, when this geochem anomaly was identified in the late 70s, the base metal guys went in there looking for gold, Teck, Inco, and Falconbridge. They did some early soil sampling in the area and reproduced these large geochemical anomalies, but never drilled a hole. And there's very little outcrop in this area. There's approximately 20 meters of cover over a large portion of this ground, which is a lot for Newfoundland. It's not a lot for you guys in Australia. So that's one of the reasons that it hasn't seen substantial work, because of the cover. But this is a belt in itself. This is a new belt in itself. And, I think the methodologies of kind of drilling down through the cover, taking a sample systematically on a grid, like you guys would do with RC drilling or RAV drilling, we need to replicate that here in the Hermitage project. And, I was really surprised that it was never picked up. The ground, we just pegged the ground at very extremely low costs. It was great value add to Matador, and yeah, we just got to go in there and do the work now. So we're working on a work plan for Hermitage for 2023.
Optimistically, blue sky talking, crystal ball talking, do you see this as a second tier for Matador, or this potentially could be a first tier project for Matador?
The Cape Ray Shear Zone has a lot of potential, and Hermitage has a lot of potential, as well. We obviously need to rationalize, how we spend our capital raised from our shareholders. We need to prioritize these targets against each other. So I think, Cape Ray is further along. We have that framework. So we need to do the early work to meet those hurdles. The next big hurdle in Hermitage is to get gold in outcrop, to get gold in the ground. So before, we go too far, we want to meet those hurdles.
Warren, I guess, when you look from afar, the regional aspect, we structures everything, as I learned, and I've many times said that my worst subject in school, but as I got out of uni, I learned that that's one of the major components of exploration. So the regional structure controls, are they so dominating that they're influencing how you're seeing on the micro scale, or are they just not, or are they just working like they should be?
Yeah, I guess they are the dominant controls on mineralization, right? And so that's been known for quite a while. So the original work done on the Cape Ray Shear was just done on the Cape Ray Shear. But nobody actually thought about, well, what could happen on these second and third order structures coming off the Cape Ray Shear. I mean, this is work done in the last 20, 30 years where there's now an understanding that these second and third order structures are hugely prospective. But 30 years ago, when the work was originally done on the Cape Ray Shear, nothing was done except on the main structure. And that's where all the discoveries were made. So that's the opportunity for us. But really, the structure tells you this is the area that I want to be in. Then it's still too big to just walk up with the drill rig. The next is the surface geochemistry and the basement geochemistry sampling to say, well, within this area, these are the structures that look like they're fertile, they're potentially mineralized. These are the structures, they don't look so mineralized, so you narrow it down. And then you start thinking about, well, here's my drill target. So yeah, structure is absolutely everything in this field, and it usually is with most orogenic gold systems.
I mean, there are some major discoveries of the primary shear where you get the secondary and the tertiary kind of. Is that where you guys are thinking where you will find the next sort of bigger deposit, or where your focus is?
Yeah, so certainly where we are at the moment at Malachite, we're focusing on these splays of second and third order shears off the main bend of the Cape Ray shear zone, but we're also looking on that main bend of the shear. So we're looking at everything. There's been no drilling at Malachite, full stop, ever, right? And here's 15 kilometres that's got gold grain anomalies that are probably, well, not probably, they are the best that we've seen on the project. Never had a drill hole. So we certainly don't want to be blinkered into just focusing on the main shear because, we know gold systems around the world, particularly orogenic gold systems. The best deposit is rarely right on the main structure. It's off the main structure on the second and third order shears.
Yep. So theoretically, right? I mean, again, I love this crystal ball questions to you guys. How big do you think these kind of things would be, like Cape Ray or whatever you find off that, whether it's Malachite or Hermitage? I mean, who's game enough to answer that question?
You're asking an exploration geologist, right? So we're always supremely optimistic, right? So to put it in perspective, we're on exactly the same structure as Marathon Gold. Marathon Gold have 5 million ounces and are proceeding into production. So it's 5 million ounces and the feasibility study says it's economic, right? So that's the potential on this belt.
Yep.
Now, you can think about it in that maybe that's the biggest deposit on the belt. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's another one twice that size. Almost certainly there's going to be another one half that size and half that size again, and so on and so forth. So, for us, I see no reason why there isn't multi-million ounce, 5 to 10 million ounce potential on that 120 kilometres of strike length or more. Yeah. And the reason why I can have some confidence in saying that is that unlike most places in the Yilgarn, the project has never been drilled. Right? Yep. So it's not as though there's a lot of drilling and you've got to start looking deep or you've got to start really thinking outside the box. Yep. This is exploration 101 in effectively an undrilled area with demonstrated multi-million ounce potential along the structure.
Crispin, I guess, the question everyone will be asking, what is the news flow coming out? I guess, I'm assuming you're the man to ask. Warren will be watching what you say, I guess. What would the news flow, what will guys be, what's coming up in the next 6-12 months?
Yeah, so we've had a large surface sampling program that went all through the summer and well into the Canadian autumn. We're still waiting on a lot of assay results to come back from this, and a lot of this is prospecting, identifying. We found lots of evidence for hydrothermal activity in malachite area, and found a lot of quartz veins with sulfides in them. There's pictures in the latest press release. So we're waiting for a lot of these assays to come back. Once the assays come back, of course, we started our drill program, our autumn drill program. We're just kicking it off here now with the first few holes. I've seen some of the first core that's coming back. We're in the process of getting that logged and getting the assays in. And this is approximately a 3,000 meter diamond drill program that we have in place, and this will bring us right up till Christmas. And then of course we'll be analyzing that data over the Canadian winter, and we're in the process of planning our 2023 program for Cape Ray and for Hermitage. So you can expect to see, news in the short term from things as simple as our prospecting that we've been undertaking, as well as, the results of our 2022 diamond drill program, and then on into our 2023 work.
Okay.
So this diamond drill program is really significant, right? As I said, there's never been a drill hole into malachite, right? So this is the first drilling at malachite. We've picked the best three, or at least the most advanced three targets to drill straight up. We may get enough time to test a fourth, but that's just four of somewhere between 14 and 17, depending on how you count them, targets that we think are potentially drill worthy just at malachite.
Well, I hope you picked the top three, mate.
So do we.
Sam's not going to be happy. Okay, look, in summary, I mean, what's the takeaway for these guys? I don't know, maybe Warren, you could take that one and we can go to Crispin, but what would the takeaway for guys out there who's watching this at the moment?
Look, I think the main takeaway is it's a huge project. It's completely underexplored. We've pivoted to focusing on making the next big greenfields discovery. We've got a low market cap. We're underpinned by a really solid resource at 830,000 ounces at around 2 grams, all of it within open pittable, almost all of it within open pittable depths. But now the focus is on where's the next million ounce plus discovery going to come from. We've got onto malachite, we've done the surface work, we've defined the targets and we've started drilling them, and we're waiting on those drill results as well as results from more surface work. We're really excited by Hermitage, but as Crispin said, it's earlier stage. So the next step there is to say, well, we've got this massive geochem anomaly. Is there any gold in the system? So we'll look for evidence, at least at surface, of gold in the system this year, with a plan to follow up with exploration next year, hopefully with some RC drilling, but we'll see how that goes, right? But certainly taking Hermitage to the next level and really driving exploration and discovery at malachite in the near term is hopefully the game changer for the company.
Okay. Crispin, did you want to add to that?
Yes. So, in summary, we have a lot of good ground to test. We have a really good team that we've put in place. We've spent a lot of time building that foundational geophysical and geochemical data set to drive the greenfields exploration. And now, we're ready to do this detailed work and make the next discovery here in Newfoundland. It's a great jurisdiction. It's an underexplored jurisdiction here, even in North America. Newfoundland hasn't seen the capital expenditures it needs to really drive the discovery here. There is known gold deposits on the island, but there's very little work to date done on detailed exploration. So it's a really exciting place to be.
Okay. Look, guys, thank you for your time. Really good technical discussion. I don't get many of these days, but look, to end it off, I work with Florence Drummond, and she's part of the Indigenous Women in Mining Resource Australia. And we've come up with a product of coffee to give away to people who give their time for coffee with Samso. Unfortunately, I'll send one to Newfoundland in due time, Crispin. But again, guys, thank you for your time.
Thanks very much, Noel.
Thank you, Crispin.
Thank you. Pleasure to meet you.